Hi folks, my name's Chuck Newt, and I'm here with Winking Pig Barbecue for another episode of Chuck's a Cookin'. So, it's been a while since I posted my last video. I've got a lot of things going on. First of all, I've been working on starting a barbecue business in the last few months, and I've had a couple of really good turnouts on a couple of cooks here. I've also been starting a new school. I just transferred over to Indiana Wesleyan University, where I'm majoring in social media marketing, and this semester, or I should say this 8 weeks, it's not really broken down into semesters over there. I take 8-week courses. In this section, I'm taking 2 classes, Introduction to Marketing and Economics for Managers. And so far I'm doing really good. I got about 3 weeks left, counting this week. So that's moving along real good. So today, what we are up to, we are going to be making some roasted chicken noodle soup. I made this at church one day, probably last winter, and my pastor's wife, or my pastor, sent me an email asking me if I could get him the recipe for the chicken noodle soup, my roasted chicken noodle soup. And so instead of just writing down the recipe, I'm just going to go ahead and make it. I promised him I'd have it done by the time cold weather got here. Well, it's nearly the end of October, and it's getting a little chilly outside, and so I need to get it done before winter really sets in. Now, there is a difference between chicken and noodles and chicken noodle soup, and typically the difference is maybe some sort of thickening agent in the broth, so to speak, or the soup. And what I would do, another distinction that I would make would be that chicken and noodles is eaten with a fork and chicken noodle soup is eaten with a spoon. So if that tells you there's a little bit of difference. Also, usually chicken noodle soup is eaten on its own, whereas a lot of times people will add a second starch like mashed potatoes to chicken and noodles. And that's not what we're doing here today. Although, up to a point, the recipe can be very similar. The only difference is that one is much thicker than the other. So, let's get started here. Okay, so the first thing I got here is a whole chicken. This one weighs 5.89 pounds, and I would recommend for this recipe a chicken somewhere between 5 and 6 pounds. And the first thing we're going to do, we're going to open this thing up, get our chicken pulled out of here. Now, anytime you're working with a bird, the first thing you need to do, especially chicken and turkey, you got to get inside and pull the pieces out of the inside of the chicken. Now, a lot of times, I don't see one in here, but a lot of times there's like a paper bag full of chicken parts or turkey parts down inside the chicken or the turkey. And right there's a neck, it looks like, and maybe a gizzard right there. That's what that looks like, turkey neck and a gizzard. And I'm not going to use that for anything here. And so the next thing I want to do is that I want to wash this chicken off. Inside and out. Good clean water. Now then, we're going to take and get about half a dozen paper towels here. And pat it dry. Make sure we drain the water out of the inside too. We don't need it. And Try the inside just a little bit. Hope you can see that. I hope I didn't lift it up too high where you didn't see. Okay, so we're going to take this bird over here to my roasting pan. We'll go from there. Now because this is chicken, you may see me washing my hands several times, simply because, especially with birds, you absolutely got to be very careful not to contaminate things with your hands or whatever. Well, folks, I have a confession to make. I screwed up. When I was recording, or actually when I thought I was recording, I was actually on pause. And when I was thought I was on pause, I was actually recording. So what I ended up with was a bunch of just blank time that was recorded with nothing being said. Okay, so that being said, let me tell you what we missed. Basically what we missed was me bringing the bird over here, and I sprayed it down with cooking spray, okay, on both sides. Then I took a little, I don't know, ramekin type thing here, and in this ramekin deal, I had one teaspoon of parsley, 1 teaspoon of sage, 1 teaspoon of rosemary, and 1 teaspoon of thyme. And in the other one here, I had 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder. And then after I sprayed it down with the spray helps it to stick. Then I just rubbed the bird all over with it on both sides. Then we stuck it into the oven at 375 for an hour and 45 minutes. Now I've just removed the bird out of the oven, and so what we're doing here, now this is a Celsius thermometer. I don't know how I ended up ordering a Celsius thermometer, but that's the reason why it's in my house instead of out in my barbecue stuff, because I ordered a new one. Okay, so right now it's reading about 90 degrees Celsius, which means that it's plenty done. Okay, so now we move on to the next step here. Okay, so now one thing you learn doing barbecue and pulled pork is what I've got here is a pair of knit gloves, and we're going to take these knit gloves, put them on. Then we are going to take a pair of the nitrile gloves. We're going to put that on over the top. And the nitrile gloves, they protect the knit gloves, but the knit gloves help protect your hands from the heat. Because this bird is still plenty hot coming out of the oven. One thing that I neglected to say a minute ago in regards to the bird when we put it in the oven at 375, that I tinted this whole pan with foil loosely. Now we're just going to begin pulling this chicken, and we're going to put skin and all into this crock pot insert. suppose I need to get something here. I'll put the bones over here for the time being. We're going to put skin and all into the crock pot. Now we want to make sure we keep any of the like gristle ends, like off the legs. Want to keep that kind of stuff out of it. Now we will fish the skin back out after we're done. I can't tell you how embarrassing it was to realize that I had not recorded what I had intended on recording and recorded nothing basically. Okay, so you can tell this chicken's nice and done, pulls apart real easy, and as you can see the steam coming off there probably, it is hot. Now you get these nice nitrile gloves if you've got a Harbor Freight in your area. They sell them by the box. Now these are the extra heavy duty ones, and it's really not necessary to get the most heavy duty ones. These are like 10 bucks a box, and I don't buy the extra heavy duty ones any longer because it's really kind of more than you need. So there you go. I'm going to take that big piece of skin right there. First of all, it's got all that spice on the outside of it, and it's just flavor, added flavor into the mix. So we're going to put it in there. Want to make sure you get all these little, especially off the leg, these pin bones and whatnot. Make sure you don't get the gristle end off the leg in there. It's not anything anybody really wants to eat. You might find, you know, right here off the tail end, there's usually a lot of fat that kind of resides there. And there's the backbone. You want to make sure you take that out because you don't want all those little bones falling apart. Shred up your breast real good here. Now, when I roast a chicken, I'll always, or a turkey for that matter, I always roast them breast down because the dark meat, which is the back and whatnot, is always more juicy, and I want the juices to flow down and through the breast as it's cooking. That helps to keep the breast more juicy too. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I usually don't like the white meat too much when I'm eating turkey, or I usually always go for the dark meat, turkey or chicken, either one. You don't need no wishbone in the chicken noodle soup. Now then, just kind of picking through and make sure we got all the meat out of it. Looks like we do. And so we're going to shred this up a little bit more. Got some big hunks of breast here. Also, another reason, make sure we don't have any bones in there that snuck by us. Always a possibility. When I was a kid, my grandmother used to make chicken noodles or chicken noodle soup, and one thing that she never did it, always irritated me was that she never did a very good job of getting all the bones out of it. But she would boil the chicken, and much more difficult because a lot of times like the back or the neck would fall apart in the soup, and it's very difficult to fish it all out once it's falling apart like that. So there, I have made an honest effort to ensure we have no bones in our chicken noodle soup. So we're going to remove the rack out of our pan here. Now then, we're going to remove our bones. out of the pan. Now we're going to take a little bit of these drippings, because fat is flavor. We're going to put just a little bit of that in there. A little bit of meat left in there. Okay, so just put a little bit in there. I'm going to say that was maybe a 1/4 cup. Okay, now we can just take this out of our pan. And put it straight in the trash. And we got a really easy cleanup job left. Still has to be washed, but nothing like we would have had before. Alright, now I've got 3 items here. This one is soup base, this one is stock, and this one is broth. And there's not a whole lot of difference in them, other than one thing. And that's typically how much sodium is in the product. See, there's no fat in this soup base. There's no fat. When you come down here to 70 sodium, and you see 1 serving of this is 31% of your daily average or daily needs. So that's 1/3 of your daily needs of sodium. Now you come over here to, this one is the broth, and you come down and you see there's no fat in it, or very little fat, 1%. And you come down and, you know, but there you go. There you come to your sodium, 36%. You come over here to your, this one is your stock, and, you know, again, only 1% of fat. And then you come down to sodium. Now this one has the least amount of sodium of any of them. So, I just wanted to let you know, that one's stock, has the least amount of sodium. This one's broth, and it had that had 36. This one had 18%. So basically, it's saying that your broth has twice the amount of sodium as what the stock did. Then you come over here. We'll come back over here to the base, and it is pretty comparable in sodium. There we go, 31%. That's pretty comparable to your broth. Now then, I don't have any here, but bouillon. I believe bouillon has the most sodium of any of them. So, just, you know, food for thought. And now tonight, I am going to be using primarily broth. And that's because soup traditionally does have quite a bit of sodium in it. And that's for flavor purposes, because a lot of what you're going to have is going to be water. So, I just wanted to inform you what you're looking at. If you're on a salt restricted diet, I would highly recommend using chicken stock rather than broth. Okay, so I got a celery stalk, a carrot here, and we're going to kind of cut this carrot down, make it easier to deal with. Maybe cut it like that lengthwise, cut it into quarters. Now then, we'll just go like this. All these pieces just kind of go right there in with the chicken. to do the same thing with the celery stalk. Now I've got us an onion. I use sweet onions for virtually everything. Okay, so we cut up the remainder of our onion, and we also we added 1/2 teaspoon more of the sage. I really love sage with the with poultry, and I also added 1/2 teaspoon more of garlic powder. And here in just a minute, I'm going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and we'll leave it go at that. So I put in 2 cartons. I put in 2 cartons of the broth, and I put in 1 carton of the stock, and that about fills it up. So let me get that pepper put in here as soon as I figure out what I did with it. We're going to go about 1/2 teaspoon. I love black pepper. There we go, about 1/2 teaspoon. Okay, so now we're going to get this thing plugged in and set it to working. Now I'm going to set it on high, and I need to bring it to a boil. So I'm going to wipe off my top here. And then once it comes to a boil, we're going to add our noodles to it. Looks better. There we go. forgot to mention, I added 4 small bay leaves in here too. So anytime I make soup, I use a lot of bay leaves. I love the flavor of them. Okay, so we've come up to a boil. Now is when I want to try to remove these pieces of skin like this. And as that one was really easy because it floated up to the top. See if I can't get this over here to the top to the trash can without making too big a mess. There you go. Floated right to the top for me. So I'm going to lose a little bit of onion, but not much. Now you do not want to eat the bay leaves. I see one of those floating there. They are strictly for flavoring and not to be eaten. Unless you like eating really woody, like woody leaves. Even after quite a long boil, they do not break down. Usually if you get one in your mouth, you kind of know that it's not to be eaten. Looks like we're starting to get there as far as getting all this skin out of it. So now then, I got 1 pound of noodles here. Essen House is the name of them. These are wide noodles. And let's see, it says to cook these and bring your broth up to a boil. Add 1 pound. And then bring back to a boil. And then let's simmer for 12 to 20 minutes depending on your desired tenderness. So we're going to put these in and hope. Well, I thought it was open at the top, but it's not, so grab my kitchen shears. It's open now. Okay, looks like all that fit in there without overflowing things I was a little worried about. Let me grab, well, there we go. Now let's push all these down and in. Let them go. There we go. Just trying to mix it back down in a little bit. Mix it throughout. There we go. We're going to put the lid back on. And we'll come back and check them in about 15-20 minutes. Okay, so here we are. Back to check it. You see our noodles have really expanded and taken up a lot of room in here. They've also sucked up a lot of our the broth in our soup. Now then, this soup is going to be plenty hearty to feed some people. See all those big hunks of chicken in here. And that bowl got hot real quick. I don't know if I didn't want to hold on to it too much longer. So there you go. That is a beautiful looking bowl of soup. Now, as always, you know that I have to, it's required that I eat in front of you. You know that, right? Very good. I'll take it. Actually, I'll set that down for a minute. And I hope you folks have enjoyed this video. Like always, a recipe, including any of them you see from me, can be a starting point. Me personally, unless it's baking, which is kind of a science, a lot of times you have to have the exact amount of yeast or something like that, and it's an exact science, much more an exact science than regular cooking. But as far as cooking is concerned, a recipe for me is a starting point. And once I make the recipe and I taste it, next time I make it, I might add something that, first time I taste it, I might think it'd be much better if I added more garlic or some celery flakes or something like that. And so I keep that in my memory, and so the next time I do it, that's what I do. Now, so I hope you folks have enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed making it for you. I've got a lot of video ideas coming up for the near future. The holidays are coming up, and I'd like to share some of my favorite recipes for the holidays. And so stay tuned, there's more to come.